Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. You're joining us for the first mission briefing with the Axiom 1 crew set to lift off in just 1 month's time. We are waiting for Axiom Space to begin their press conference. We are also in the press conference meeting room, so hopefully we'll get to ask your guys' questions and ours to the crew as we count down towards liftoff. We pre-scheduled this launch actually just last night, so we hope you'll join us for that at the end of March as we see the first private crewed mission to the International Space Station and Axiom Space's first mission with 4 private people on board. They'll be flying the Spacex Crew Dragon Resilience, just like Crew 1 and Inspiration 4 before them, and we are glad to have you all here. Again, we do have Rocket Lab also launching later today, so we hope you'll join us for that. We're just getting ready for this mission briefing to start, so we're going to pull back here as we get ready in the mission briefing room, and we will patch in the briefing live once it begins. If you guys have questions, send those in the chat. Just make sure you tag us at the launch pad. We're going to be saving those, and your question may be included when we get to ask ours. So stay with us. We should be starting shortly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Hello and thank you again. We're very excited for you to be part of this press conference. I'm Bettina Inclán with Axiom Space. We are excited to share an update on the Axiom Space AX-1 mission, the first all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Over the next hour, we'll hear brief remarks from Axiom leadership on the goals of the mission and preparation leading to flight, from NASA on its priorities for the low Earth orbit economy and expanded research capabilities, and from SpaceX on the status of the rocket and spacecraft exactly a month out from launch. Today's speakers are Michael Staffordini, the President and CEO of Axiom Space, Michael López-Alegría, AX-1 Crew Commander of Axiom Space, Christian Meander, in-space research and manufacturing Axiom Space, Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator, Space Operations, NASA, Robin Gatens, Director of International Space Station, NASA, Phil Mcallister, Director of Commercial Spaceflight Division, NASA, and Benji Reed, Director of Crew Mission Management at SpaceX. Today's press briefing takes place as dynamic international events continue to unfold. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Ukraine. As we continue to monitor the conflict and hope for peaceful resolution, our teams remain committed to moving forward with this historic mission. We look forward to this opportunity to focus on AX-1 and provide an overview of the work being done on this first all-private astronaut mission to the ISS. In a moment, I will turn it over to our speakers and their opening remarks. Just a few housekeepings, just following remarks, we'll open it up to questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please submit your question in the chat to the moderator. You could also raise your hand. In the chat, when you please mention your name, news outlet, and affiliation, and to whom you'd like to direct your question. Several questions have also been previously submitted online, and we'll try to get those as well. As always, with these video calls, as you know, please make sure that your mics are muted. And now we'll begin with an overview of the AX-1 mission with Michael Staffordini, President and CEO of Axiom Space. Staff?
Thank you, Bettina. Good morning, everyone. As Bettina said, this is a historical mission for two reasons, the first of which she mentioned, and that is that this is the first completely private mission to the International Space Station. There have been individuals that have flown on government flights, but never a completely private flight. So we're very excited about this being the very first one of those. In addition to that, Axiom Space was founded to build a commercial space station. The first module will launch in a little over 2 years now. But this is our very first mission of probably hundreds of missions to come over the next several decades as we build the Axiom Space Station and provide services in low Earth orbit for many decades to come. So this is very exciting for us for both of those reasons. Of course, when you look towards these kinds of missions, I've never known anyone to have really do this on their own. It's a group effort. And so today we're here together with both our NASA counterparts, who we've worked closely with over the last, well, I guess since about 2016 when we really started this effort. And probably equally as long with our SpaceX friends as we've worked together to set up these first several missions. In fact, our first 4 missions are already contracted with SpaceX. And so this is a group effort, and we appreciate the partnerships with both SpaceX and NASA as we move forward. I'm also very excited that this first mission is very representative of the kinds of flights that we will be, kinds of missions we will be providing for many years to come. I think it's fantastic that it's an international crew. I think it's also equally important to all of us that the crew's not just going to, they're not up there to paste their nose on the window. They really are going up there to do meaningful research and make a difference each in their own way. You'll hear a little bit about the crew, but I'll mention them each just to give you a little highlight. Of course, Michael López-Alegría is Axiom Commander. He needs no introduction. He's done it all, including commanding probably one of the most challenging increments in the life of the International Space Station, because that's when we were configuring from our interim power system to our final power system, and the amount of work they had to do outside to make that happen was phenomenal. So we're very happy to have him leading the mission. The pilot for the mission is Larry Connor. He's a U.S. citizen. He's got a number of things he wants to do, but in particular, he's working with the Cleveland Clinic and the Mayo Clinic, advancing stem cell research and cancer research, as well as research on aging. Mark Pathy is one of our missions. Larry is our pilot, by the way. Mark Pathy is one of our mission specialists. He also has been working closely with Canadian universities and the Montreal Children's Hospital, and he has a host of research planned as well. And finally, we have an Israeli, Eitan Stibi, and he is really doing a lot of work with the Ramon Foundation. They have a number of research experiments that they've been doing in collaboration with the Israeli Space Agency. So this really is a meaningful mission, not only for those four gentlemen, but for all of us, because what they're doing is really advancing the state of humanity and human knowledge, which is what our company is built for. So with that, I'll hand it back to Bettina. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Michael López-Alegría, commander of the mission.
Thanks, Bettina. Hey, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here with my colleagues, past and present. I'm very excited about that, but I'm much more excited about getting back into space on this historic mission. This has really been a dream come true for me, and it's been amazing to see both the crew and the company mature and gel as we get ready for this very important step into the future. We've been training a lot for the last several months. We have been the first crew to ever go through NASA's private astronaut syllabus, and we have checked all the mandatory boxes. We did that here at the Johnson Space Center next door here in Houston. The same is true for the Crew Dragon, which we did mostly out in Hawthorne at Spacex headquarters. So we got very familiar with the systems on both of those vehicles. And then finally, we've done a lot of work preparing to do the experimentation that Mike briefly described. In fact, I think it's a good opportunity to point out that this mission is very different from what you may have heard of in some of the recent, especially suborbital missions. We are not space tourists. I think there's an important role for space tourism, but it is not what Axiom is about. My crewmates have worked very hard. I've been super impressed with their diligence and their commitment. And they're busy people, and they've taken a lot of time out of their lives to focus on this. And it's definitely not a vacation for them. For the next week and a half before we enter quarantine, it's mostly doing a little bit of refresher training, both at JSC and at SpaceX. And we have also been doing some what they call baseline data collection, which is the collection of data for the experiments that we do. Generally, they like doing some pre-flight, in-flight, and post-flight. And that will continue during quarantine as well. And basically, that's it. We are, in short, ready to fly. Over back to you, Bettina.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Christian Menzer, Director of In-Space Research and Manufacturing at Axiom Space.
Thanks, Bettina. It's exciting to be here. We've been working on this mission for quite a while. It's just fantastic to be a month out, and can't wait to see Mike and Larry and Mark and Eitan board the vehicle and head to orbit. I don't think Mike LA gave credit to the crew enough to talk about how well they have been preparing for this research mission that they are doing on here. We have a serious research focused mission. It's really leveraging the opportunity of the ISS to really magnify what the ISS is there for, what we use it for every day for research, and really kick off some important efforts about building the low Earth orbit economy. When we talk about realizing the vision for LEO and a LEO economy, this mission is kind of the flag bearer for not only a standard for private astronaut missions for the future, but the future of research in microgravity. So this crew has been really dedicated to research. They're actually taking more than 25 research experiments that have been developed for microgravity and have an additional 10 to 12 pre and post only experiments that they're doing. And they're in collaboration with a lot of the leading health and science organizations across the world. And you've heard Mike Staffordini talk a little bit about this. So this collection of life science and tech demos really is a very deep breadth of research that's going to kind of inform everything from human health considerations, both in space and on the ground, and the novel infrastructures and design for future homes away from Earth. So we're looking at things including stem cells, cardiac health. We're looking at spacecraft self-assembly, a lot of different experiments. And each of these projects have come to bear because of the interest of this crew. Early in the mission design process, they brought to us a portfolio of work. They said, we really want to do some of these things in orbit. And it's been a pleasure to work with them and with NASA and the National Lab to really bring these things to fruition for the crew. And what's exciting about what they're doing is they're really making contributions to the future here. And so we're gonna see some neat results that come out of this mission. And I hope you tune in to the mission itself, because there's gonna be some fantastic video coming down from orbit. So in addition to the mission research that our crew is doing, we're also returning a selection of NASA life science investigations for continued ground research once they're back on Earth. Basically, a lot of samples that have been on orbit need to get home, and we're getting those home for NASA. And we also have a set of Axiom projects that we'll be doing that we'll be talking a little bit more about in the coming weeks. Work that we're going to be doing with first Japanese commercial space payload is flying with us. We have a project coming out of the Sanford Consortium and University of California, San Diego, a project with MIT Media Lab and Aurelia, and a project with a very well-known cloud computing platform. And so we're excited to be doing some of these things because they open the aperture for what we're doing with commercial space. So in conclusion, I would say opening this lab and opening the ISS up to new users and opportunities really is exciting, and I'm encouraged to be doing this with Axiom, and we've really appreciated our partnership with NASA and SpaceX. And so we're going to turn that back over to you, Bettina.
Thank you, Christian. Next, we'll hear from Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator, Space Operations, NASA.
Well, I think when LA said, here we are with, old colleagues, well, I won't say any of us are old, but with people we've all been working together with for a while, I think it really shows the extent of the partnership, and that as a partnership, we've been working on this for a while. I think Mike and I sat in some meetings in 2006, 2007, and there was like a little bit of a gleam in our eyes at that point of, would we be here getting ready to go do our first private astronaut missions? And it has been really amazing to see first us working with industry on cargo, then crew. I remember Mike LA, I think you were my first crew rep on commercial crew. And I don't think at that point, or maybe you were at that point getting ready to begin your planning for your first private astronaut flight up here. So I will tell you, this is really another example of how we've been kind of laying the foundation and working together and using the investment that the nation makes in NASA to continue to impart knowledge, work with partnerships to go figure out new ways to be able to use the capability that the nation's invested in. And it's pretty amazing to hear from Mike and LA and what the crew's getting ready to go do on orbit, because I know the station's been evolving over the last 10 years to continue to find new ways for us to be able to use it. Our crew members, and they are very excited to have private astronaut crew members coming up. Obviously, we've been focused on how do we do the exploration goal missions that they have, and continuing to expand the capabilities and provide that bridging gap while we are waiting for our private astronaut missions to come up and begin to me, move into this next continuum of having private astronauts also do research on space station. Obviously, our crew members are focused on us getting ready for exploration and meeting the goals that NASA has, and working on obviously maintaining the facility and keeping us ready so that our private astronaut friends can come up and be able to do the science and research that we need to be able to do. So very, very, very exciting time. We're going to do this as a team. As we know, this is going to be an important partnership going forward, and look forward to continue to enable private space and using the investment that the nation's really made in NASA to be able to continue to invest in our preeminence in the LEO commercial economy. Very, very, very exciting time for us. Really looking forward to this mission coming up. And Bettina, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we'll hear from Robin Gaetens, Director of International Space Station, NASA.
Hi, everyone. So the space station team has been excited about this mission and have been preparing for it for a while and working really hard with our friends at Axiom. So we're excited that we're 30 days away. You know, as we think about the goals that we want to achieve in this decade of results on the International Space Station, paving the way for a successful LEO economy is one of them, but also enabling future exploration beyond low Earth orbit, performing research to benefit and inspire humanity here on Earth, and growing our international partnerships. So when we think about the private astronaut missions to the space station, it really touches on many of these goals. And by supporting these missions, we can enable private companies to begin developing customers for future commercial space stations. The private astronauts are planning impactful and inspirational research of their own, and we're broadening the use of the space station and expanding our partnerships. So as we get ready for this launch, we mentioned it's launching on March 30th, docking to the space station on March 31st, and undocking on April 9th. And you've heard about the crew. After they dock, the crew will perform a suite of activities that's standard for any new crew arriving on the space station. And that'll include safety briefings, emergency reviews, familiarization kinds of activities, a welcome ceremony, and then getting down to business and getting their hardware on board and beginning their research. Christian talked about the research. We're happy to host 26 experiments in collaboration with the ISS National Lab. And we've been working hard to make sure those will be successful. And we're interested to see how those go and hear about those results. Lots of exciting research. And then really appreciate the Axiom mission returning some cargo for NASA. Christian mentioned some of the life science samples that we'll be bringing back. And also one of our expended nitrogen tanks. So that's going to help us out a lot because we have a lot on board the space station right now and a lot of things in storage. So bringing that home for us so it can be refurbished will be really helpful. Those are conclude my remarks. I look forward to your questions, and I'll turn it back over to Bettina.
Thank you, Robin. Next, Phil Mcallister, Director of Commercial Spaceflight Division, NASA.
Thanks, Bettina, and welcome everybody. I think from the remarks that you've heard, it's pretty clear that the low Earth orbit economy is booming right now. There's a vast diversity of missions. You've got suborbital flights, we've got Inspiration 4 type missions, even commercial Soyuz seats, and now private astronaut missions. It's really an exciting time, and it's something that we've been working forward at NASA for many years, starting with cargo, then with crew, and now we've got private astronaut missions starting, and then hopefully soon commercial LEO destinations in the 2030 timeframe after the ISS retires. So it's really an exciting time, I have to say, both at NASA and the private sector. We're very pleased to be partnering with Axiom on this private astronaut mission. And all these missions, they kind of have their own kind of nuance. They're all unique in a variety of different ways. So I wanted to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities. It'll look the same. If you're watching the mission, it'll be the same old Falcon 9 with the Dragon on top. So it'll look very much the same, follows the same trajectory, but behind the scenes, it will be very different. Axiom Space is really responsible for the most part for the passengers, the crew members, their safety. during the ascent and the launch. That will be regulated by the FAA, as well as the return and the recovery will be also managed by Axiom Space. NASA's involvement is fairly limited, and it will be focused on the International Space Station. Once the Dragon vehicle gets close to the International Space Station, it's about a 200-kilometer range, it will enter in what we call integrated operations. Prior to that, it will be independent operations. So that it will be operating very independently from NASA. But once it gets close to the ISS, then NASA has responsibility for the safety of the spacecraft, the ISS, as well as the crew members when they come. And so when they dock, they will become part of the ISS crew under the supervision of the ISS commander, and then NASA will be responsible for their health and safety while they're on orbit. So I know a lot of people are used to coming to NASA for information, and we're happy to provide some of that, but primarily, again, this is an Axiom mission, and we will be following it as we do almost all of these missions. The Dragon is very similar to the Cargo Dragon. So we will have some NASA personnel that do what we call fleet following, which means that they will be monitoring the mission real time, the mission operations. As you probably know, we have another crew mission, Crew 4, that's just a couple weeks away. So if there's anything off nominal, we want to sort of make sure that we are aware of that. And we are going to have a flight readiness review, and we'll have an after that, we'll have a press conference, but it will be a very focused flight readiness review. It won't be the typical FRR that you may be used to for a NASA mission. We're really just focused in that FRR is the ISS ready to receive this vehicle? And are we ready to go from a space station standpoint? And we won't be going through the vehicle hardware like we normally do and all those checks and analysis that we perform, as well as the Dragon. So it will be a very, very focused FRR. Again, mostly focused on, is the ISS ready? But I think as Mike said, Michael LA, we've prepared for this. We've been working for it. Axiom has done its part. The crew members have been amazing going through the training. And I think we'll be ready on the NASA side to provide the limited focused activities and resources that we will be doing. Thank you, Bettina. That's it.
Thank you, Phil. And last but not least is Benji Reed, Director of Crew Mission Management at SpaceX.
Good morning. Thank you, Bettina. First of all, just got to say we are very excited about this upcoming mission. AX-1 is the first all-private astronaut mission to the space station, and it's an honor for us to be able to participate in that and provide transportation services. On behalf of all the SpaceX team, we appreciate Axiom and allowing us this opportunity to do this, and also to NASA for giving us the destination for this partnership to proceed. This is the first of 4 missions that we will be doing with Axiom Space, and that's very cool. It's a big deal when we think about these 4 astronauts who are going to be traveling. Michael and Larry and Mark and Eitan. We're honored that they would choose to trust us, and that their families trust us to carry them to the space station, and then about 10 days later bring them home. So first of all, those big thank yous. As I sit here, I have to admit that I think a little bit about growing up and seeing the space shuttle, and that was designed to be a vehicle that would carry people to space, carry people, cargo, equipment, and really create constant access to low Earth orbit. And it's awesome to be here thinking about the fact that here we are, right? We're doing this now. We're opening up, we as a joint team, doing all of this work to continue to open up LEO, and especially to Axiom, whose goal is to really open up low Earth orbit to everybody. We often talk about how serious we take these responsibilities. It's critical. Every day we think about how are we making sure that we're carrying crews safely, getting the critical cargo that the crews need on orbit safely, and then of course bringing people back home to their families. It's an exciting time, and it's also a vigilant time when we have to pay close attention. Speaking of that, down at the Cape, we have our Falcon 9 rocket and also our Dragon spacecraft are coming along well. They are on track for being ready to launch here in about a month. And in fact, after we finish the final steps of refurbishment on the Dragon capsule, we'll be going into what we often call the test drive. It'll be the first time that the crew gets to get into their vehicle. Traditionally, that's more referred to as the CEIT, or the Crew Equipment Interface Test. And after that, of course, we carry on through finally integrating Dragon and the Falcon, and getting them out on the pad and getting ready to launch these folks to space. I want to just again thank you for the partnership. We want to ensure that we work closely together to ensure all teams are ready to fly. There'll be another number of reviews, tests, ongoing analyses that we all do, that we do internally, that we do jointly, to make sure that things are good to go. Thank you especially to NASA for all of the work that they've done and the opportunities they provided for us to grow into this industry as a team, and continue to provide that exploration of space. And thank you to Axiom again.
Thank you, Benji. So with that, we'll start taking questions from reporters. As a reminder, we have some questions that have come in online. You can submit your questions in the chat. And to help keep us moving along, please say if you have your mic unmuted, please say your name, affiliation, and to whom you'd like to direct your questions. A quick reminder, there is a slight delay, so give us a second when your mics are unmuted. And we'll take our first question. And if we have time, we'll do follow-ups. But our first question will come from Andrea Leinfelder with the Houston Chronicle. She submitted in the chat. She says, I'd love some color on the final preparations that will occur in Houston during the final month. Is the crew here training at the Johnson Space Center? If so, what are they doing? And what's happening in the Axiom mission control? Thanks.
You want me to take that, Bettina?
Yeah, I was going to suggest Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me talk about the training piece, and Seth, maybe you could talk about mission control. So for training, as I said, mostly it's refresher training. We have what we call a day in the life sim coming up. We'll be doing some other refreshers on important systems like the galley and the toilet and things that are, we don't want to mess up for sure. A lot of, as I mentioned before, baseline data collection. This is where they'll be taking blood, urine, all kinds of samples in preparation for the many experiments that we're doing. And then we also have a trip planned out west to Hawthorne to do the last few simulations of launch and reentry in the Spacex Crew Dragon simulator. And then we'll be ready for quarantine. We'll spend about half a day every day training in quarantine on many of the same things. Again, continuing with BDC, and then focusing, studying, and getting ready for launch. Stuff.
Yeah, from the MCC side, actually our Mission Control Center is up and running here at our facility. It's really going to be used for flight following mode, although we have utilized it to interact with the crew on orbit already through some of our experiments we've been working on. But we will primarily operate close to NASA at MCC Houston, and we'll follow with our own mission control here. Those preparations are really done. For us, the last final items we have to take care of is getting the last few items packed to be shipped and packed on board. There's just a few items left there. But other than that, the team is ready to go and looking forward to the mission.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Irene Klotz. Irene, give us a second. We'll open up the mic.
Thanks, Bettina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Nice to see you all. My question, probably for Seth, maybe for Mcallister, did any of the training for the private astronaut mission require travel to Russia? And if so, is the situation with Ukraine affecting any of the training and travel for the Axiom 2 mission?
Thank you, Irene.
Hey, Irene. We did not travel to Russia. We did travel to Cologne to train in the Columbus module and did some remote training with JAXA, but did not do any training in Russia. And I think our plan, most of our activities are concentrated on the US segment. So we would like to go visit over there. We need to be escorted. And the reason for that, more than anything, is just because of safety considerations, since we haven't had any training on the safety procedures and equipment in the Russian segment. And as for AX-2, we haven't really begun training for that mission yet. So I know, obviously no impact.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Eric Berger. Eric.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for doing this. Now, I realize this call is about AX-1, and I respect that, but there obviously are very serious questions about the ISS right now in light of the Russian aggression in Ukraine. I was hoping maybe Kathy or Robin could give us an update on the status of the partnership, and also, has there been any consideration to giving or having Mark Vande Hei come back on AX-1 instead of the Soyuz? Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and take that one, Eric. So right now, operations are nominal. Obviously, we're continuing to monitor the situation, but, our control centers are operating nominally together. We've gotten the support we needed. And so the team's meeting daily. We want to make sure all our folks over in Russia are operating, everybody's okay, but we're continuing to operate nominally and do our training activities nominally. But obviously, need to continue to monitor the situation. We right now, in the same manner, are planning on Mark and are getting ready for Mark to return, and all of the normal operations are in place for that, for us to be able to go do that. But as you know, we continue to, as always, if you're working on space station, you continue to monitor the situation and operate. We have operated, and Seth's well aware, we've operated in these kind of situations before, and both sides always operated very professionally and understands at our level the importance of this fantastic mission and continuing to have peaceful relations between the two countries in space.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next question was sent in through the chat, and forgive me, I'm going to try to pronounce this correct. Yafit Ovadia, from aerospace correspondent for the Israeli financial newspaper. What type of effect do you believe the research conducted aboard the ISS will have on the space tech ecosystem? And this question is for Christian.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think what is great about AX-1 is it's kind of a pathfinder for opportunities in low Earth orbit. And one of the things that I think is most exciting about the work that the research that we're doing is it is a continuum or a spectrum of research that leans somewhat towards exploration all the way towards fully commercial. But what we're seeing with this early research is an opportunity to start looking at modern tools for assessing health in space. We're flying a number of different instruments that are going to be checked out. There are going to be some interesting questions answered around not just human health but in space, but also human health on the ground. And those hopefully pay dividends as we invest the data that or the research and the outcomes that we have into that into new discoveries on orbit. There are a couple tech demos too that I think are going to be pretty fantastic. One that's looking at making optics in space and using surface tension and fluids to do that. And there's another one that's looking at self-assembly of spacecraft through some various means. And the reason we get excited about that is when we talk about ourselves as an infrastructure company, these are the kinds of projects that we want to see happen because they represent the beginnings of a future where we can build and manufacture spacecraft in space. And so to kind of close with your question, I think a lot of these experiments start to open up the space tech ecosystem, but more importantly, I think the mission and the opportunity that it brings really hopefully opens the aperture to a number of different companies to understand that space isn't just limited to those that want to ask exploration questions, and there are opportunities opening up for traditional companies to use space in a meaningful way to either answer questions for their industry solve some sort of problem that they're having on the ground.
Thank you, Christian. We have one of the questions that was submitted to us online is from Elizabeth Howell, space.com. This question is for MLA. Congratulations on the upcoming flights. Can you share some thoughts on the meaning for the crew to be the first to conduct a mission for Axiom Space? Any plans you might have to commemorate that milestone in space, such as flying any special items or performing any special activities?
Well, thanks for the question, Elizabeth, and for the congratulations as well. It means a lot. You know, this is, as has been said many times, the first fully private mission to the ISS. And with that, you know, we feel like we're going to be standard bearers. We really want to set the bar very, very high. We're very cognizant that we will be guests aboard the ISS. I myself, when I was commander, received a guest crew as a space shuttle at the time, but we know how that can be disruptive. And so we're super sensitive to that. And we think that's a very good example to be setting for future crews. Everybody on the crew is, as I said, been very dedicated, very committed, very professional in this, and we really are taking this very, very seriously. It is not tourism, as I said before. We do have some special things to commemorate the significance of this event. I don't want to divulge them yet, so stay tuned, but we do have a couple things that I hope you'll enjoy watching. And thanks again for your question.
Great. Our next question comes from, Blake Schmidt from Bloomberg. Could you go over again the research projects? This question is for Christian. And can you give any more details on each of those? And I will say, Blake, we will be providing a press release in the future with more details. A lot of the science will be happening on the mission, so stay tuned for that. But Christian?
I'm sure I can recap what we've already talked about from the crew with Eitan and what he's doing with the Ramon Foundation Israeli Space Agency. It is a wide array of research, both tech demos and life science work. Mark is doing a lot of life science and human research with his collaborators in some of the Canadian universities and the Canadian Space Agency, Leap Biosystems, and the Montreal Children's Hospital. And then Larry has got some really focused research from Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, looking at a couple things. One is spine and brain health. Another project is looking at the behavior of cardiac stem cells, and then also looking at what is called a senescent cell, or cells that have a role in aging in your body. And all of those are being done in orbit in a way that lets us look at the cell response. And so Larry will be actually growing some stem cells in space. Now, beyond that, we have some projects that Axiom is doing that I mentioned before. We're working with a company called JAMS in Japan to fly a photocatalyst device that works on odor removal in space, and it uses a very low power and uses a different system than traditionally used, and we're going to test that in orbit. We have a project with a Sanford consortium where we're flying some tumor organoids, looking at their behavior, and we're going to be using a fluorescent microscope on orbit to understand some of the activation that's happening inside those cells along the way. We have a project, a couple other projects that I can't completely mention yet because we'll be talking about them. But one is, I've already mentioned, is a self-assembling spacecraft technology that comes out of MIT Media Lab and a spinoff called Aurelia. And we'll be flying that on orbit. And Mike LA is going to have a fun afternoon watching these little pieces self-assemble in orbit, and hopefully it'll create some cool videos. So that's a taste of what's going on. If I had to cover all 26 experiments, I'd use up the rest of the press conference, but we're looking forward to talking a little bit more in future discussions about all of the details. Thanks.
Thank you, Christian. Next, we'll open up the line to Marcia Smith. Marcia?
Thanks so much, Bettina. And again, respecting that this is really about AX-1, but that there are events going on here on Earth, I was wondering if Mike could give an update on the development of Axiom Station, and just in case agreement cannot be reached to extend ISS to 2030, is there a way to accelerate its development? and shorten the amount of time it needs to be attached to ISS so it can become a free-flying commercial station?
Yeah, thank you, Marcia, for the question. First of all, an update. Our planned launch date for our first module is September of 2024. We just finished CDR, wrapping up CDR for the structure, and we've got CDR for the primary structure, and we've got CDR for the whole module. In fact, for the first two modules coming up this summer, we're on schedule for that, and that supports the launch date of September of 24. About 6 months later, a second module launches. It's very similar to the first. They look like, if you're a station person, they basically look like extended nodes, if you will. And then after that, we fly a research module, which is a modified MPLM focusing on research. And then from that point on, really, we're sitting in a state waiting for the point at which ISS is ready to retire. And about a year before that happens, we'll bring up our power and cooling module. That's because it's a very large solar array, and it kind of interferes with the ISS solar arrays are already hard enough to operate. They don't need any more challenges like shadowing from our big solar array. So we really wait till then. So our original schedule supported 2028. We're of course happy to support 2030, but we do have some flexibility there.
Thank you, Marcia. Our next question, we're going to open up live to Jeff Faust. Jeff?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you,
All
Jeff.
right. Yeah, question probably for Benji, since you've got Crew 4 coming not long after AX-1, how late could you still launch AX-1 and keep Crew 4 on track for mid-April? And could you also remind us which Crew Dragon spacecraft you're using for both AX-1 and Crew 4? Thanks.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that question, Jeff. Let's see. First of all, in terms of the capsule assignments, actually, I just want to take a moment there and say how cool it is that we always get to talk. We have a fleet of Dragons. Everybody else has talked about. We worked with, Mike and Kathy and Phil for so long, and now we have a fleet of Dragons. We got to talk about which one's going to which mission. I think that's just awesome. But let's see. We have Endeavor coming up next, and then we have it's actually a new capsule going on Crew 4. It'll be our 212 capsule is the serial number. In terms of where we're at in the schedule, right now we're on track for launching AX-1 in about a month. And then, a couple weeks after that, our target is to be able to launch Crew 4. There is margin in both of those schedules. I think we could, if we needed to, I think AX-1 could move a little bit. We hope it doesn't. And I don't foresee right now, knock on wood, that there's a reason that it would move. But if it does, it probably would be within, days, the kind of measured in days kinds of thing. And then it comes to Crew 4, similarly, right? We're on track. The crews are doing great. Training is going well. That vehicle preparation, both vehicles, Dragon and Falcon, are on track. And so I really think that we've got the margin that we need if there's a little bit of wiggle room, and be able to continue to launch, because it's exciting. We get to make sure we're, taking Axiom up and bringing them home in 10 days. And then Crew 4 goes up, and then we have to be ready for, even looking forward into the fall for Crew 5.
Thank you, Benji. We have a question from Javier Gregori from Cadena SER, the largest radio station in Spain. This is from Michael López-Alegría. He would like you to answer it in Spanish. In English, the question is, you were born in Spain and you're one of the best astronauts in history. How could a small country like Spain increase participation in space? And Spain has just created the first Spanish space agency. Would you like to be, if you would be interested in leadership there?
Wow. Hola, Javier, un placer saludarte. A ver, yo creo que para España esto sí que es una misión simbólica, como antes fueron los anteriores mías y también de Pedro Duque. Sin embargo, yo creo que siempre hay la posibilidad de mejorar su posición en cuanto a al sector espacial, y se ve ahora que con empresas privadas como el que está intentando lanzar cohetes desde España, es algo impresionante. Yo siempre he creído que la preparación de los ingenieros españoles es igual de cualquier otro país, sino incluso mejor. Y tengo mucha esperanza que estos avances sigan en este rumbo. Pues nada más, gracias.
Thank you, MLA, and thank you, Javier. Next question will come from David Curley from Discovery. David, your line's open.
Very much, Bettina. A question for Michael very quickly. You have your training with SpaceX, your NASA training for space station, your Axiom program. Has that been defined by your experience at NASA? How is it different? And how does it feel flying for a company rather than a country? Thank you.
Hey, David. Well, to be honest, it doesn't feel terribly different flying for a company than for a country. I mean, I think our focus is always safety and mission success, and that's really unchanged. I do have some different responsibilities because these my crewmates are my crewmates first and foremost, but they're also the company's customers, and that's obviously a consideration. I would say the training at NASA has been kind of a pleasant surprise. I was thinking it would be a little routine, but so much on the station has changed that, and the rest of it I forgot that it was like starting over again. And boy, SpaceX training in the Crew Dragon is an amazing vehicle. It's very exciting to see how they've integrated the technology, you know, that we sort of band-aided together a bit in the space shuttle by adding portable computers, all integrated beautifully into a cockpit that's super clean and just a pleasure to work in. So yeah, the training for me, and especially for my crew, for whom this is obviously brand new in every sense, you know, we're just like kids in a candy store. It's been great.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Omer Azrang, GLZ Radio in Israel. This one's for you again, for Michael, to MLA. Can you put your finger on the main goal for this mission?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the main goal is to complete it safely. I think we all sort of assume that that will be the case, and we're doing everything to make that possible. That's with our colleagues at NASA, SpaceX, of course, within Axiom. But more, maybe to answer your question, I think we are, as I said before, really trying to set the bar high for future private astronaut missions to the International Space Station. And we have a very ambitious timeline filled with a lot of experimentation and also a lot of outreach to educational organizations all over the world. And I think if we can get through all of that and make our ISS hosts want us to come back, I think that would be a win.
Thank you. Next, we'll open up the line to Tim Fernholz from Quartz. Tim?
Hello, thank you for taking my question. I'm curious to ask another question about the research and how the projects were selected. Obviously, some are Axiom projects, but for the projects chosen by the spaceflight participants themselves, were those projects that were already in the National Lab pipeline, or were they projects that were just not even being considered for space research until the astronauts approached the sponsoring organizations? I guess I'm just curious how you sort of went about making sure you're bringing the most important research to space for this mission. And also curious if you can say what share of the mission experiments are for Axiom and what share are brought up by the spaceflight participants. Thank you.
Let's see. Thank you, Tim. I'll take that. I'll answer the last question first. And I think I would say about 10% of the content is Axiom related, and the other 90 is crew related. In terms of how the research was selected, each crew member brought a slightly different approach. Eitan Stibe worked with the Ramon Foundation in Israel, and the Ramon Foundation actually put out a call for novel and new research. Some of the content came in was, I would say, revisions or iterations on things that had been done in the past, and some of it was completely new. And then those projects were reviewed and selected. Axiom was part of that to provide feedback on the feasibility and those kinds of things. And they were ultimately selected, and then funding was secured, and we went off to go get those developed and ready to fly. Larry had very specific relationships with Mayo and Cleveland Clinic, and specifically at Mayo, he had relationships with the Center for Aging and the Center for Regenerative Medicine. And so we worked early on to actually collaborate with them, and some of our life science team sat down and said, you know, what questions do you want to ask? And we helped design some projects that we would work. We found some partners to help us do some of the stem cell research where we're not, where we don't have strength or we don't have core competencies. And so we're working with BioServe Space Technologies out in Colorado to do that work. And then Mark, again, similar to Larry, he had institutions that he worked with, and we worked with him to design a set of projects that he could fly. And a lot of these were questions that were originally sought to kind of fly through the Canadian Space Agency, but ultimately, because of the allocation the Canadians get, they didn't necessarily always make the cut. And so they were important questions that that needed to be asked. And so they've been added to the portfolio. I think I would close to say that because a lot of these were new, we had to work really closely with NASA and the ISS National Lab to get these put together pretty quickly. And I'd like to say thank you to the agency, particularly to the ISS program, and helping us work through a lot of payload integration work to get these ready for the mission. And it's been a terrific partnership so far, and it's thanks to the folks at the agency and all of the teams that support the agency that are enabling us to get these ready in short order and fly to space.
Thank you, Christian. And our last question will come from Micah Miedenberg from the Wall Street Journal.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Micah. Yes.
Hi. Good morning. I'd like to ask another broader question, if I may. Kathy, I wanted to make sure I understand. Does NASA have any backup plans in place to potentially boost the ISS or carry out other services that are currently handled by your Russian partners? Could you describe those plans if so? And if not, do you think NASA needs to articulate those sorts of plans in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Thank you.
So Mike, I just, the one thing I want to make sure everybody on the call gets is we are not getting any indications at a working level that our counterparts are not committed to ongoing operation of the International Space Station. We as a team are operating just like we were operating 3 weeks ago. So I just, the teams, our flight controllers are still talking together. Our teams are still talking together. We're still doing training together. We're still working together. Obviously, we understand the global situation where it is, but as a joint team, these teams are operating together. That said, we always look for how do we get more operational flexibility, and our cargo providers and are looking at how do we add different capabilities. We'd had Northrop Grumman has been offering up a reboost capability, and our SpaceX folks are looking at, can we have additional capability? That to me is, we've been looking at that more from an operational flexibility perspective. Currently, there is no plan. It would be very difficult for us to be operating on our own. The ISS is an international partnership that was created as an international partnership with joint dependencies, which is what makes it such an amazing program. It's a place where we live and operate in space in a peaceful manner. That's really a model for us to be operating in the future. And I actually feel like this is a good message for us that we are operating peacefully in space now and moving forward. Obviously, we have to begin to, and as a team, we are looking at where we may have operational flexibilities, but Micah, it would be a sad day. It would be a sad day for international operations if we can't continue to peacefully operate in space. And as a team, we are doing that.
Thank you, Kathy. And with that, our hour has come to a close. I'm going to turn it over to Michael Staffordini, CEO and President of Axiom, for some closing remarks.
Well, first, thank all of you for your questions and your interest in our mission. We're very, very excited about this first flight. It has huge meaning, as we mentioned before, to us, and I believe also to it has worldwide implications, given that these flights for us are really precursor missions to learning how to operate in space, particularly with with the international partners. Because really we have to operate together while we're attached, and so these missions give us a chance to practice that at a smaller scale, so that when our space shows up, we kind of figured out how to do this. So to us, these are all steps towards a bigger space station, and with that, when you think about it that way, it's just a very, very exciting time for us. Once again, I want to thank both NASA and SpaceX. They have been just fantastic to work with. This is a very, very challenging thing to do. It's made easy it's made to look easy by both NASA and SpaceX. But I can tell you that's furthest from the truth, and we're just very excited to be doing this with them. So again, thank you all very much, and we're looking forward to the launch here in about 30 days.
And thank you so much, Mike. And that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that we had lots of questions and we couldn't get to all of them. So we appreciate your patience during this time. And please send us your follow-up questions to media@axiomspace.com, and we'll try our best to respond to them. We encourage you to follow the mission at axiomspace.com and on social media with the hashtag AX-1. As a reminder, media credentialing is closed for foreign nationals, but it's still open for US-based media until March 14th. Please email media@axiomspace.com for details on credentialing. We encourage everyone, including badge holders, to secure credentialing to ensure you have access to all events. And if you'd like to set up an interview with the AX-1 crew, please email media@axiomspace.com, and we'll ensure your request gets to the crew members. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate tuning in today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
And just like that, that is the mission briefing of Axiom 1. Thank you so much for everyone joining us and sending in your questions. We did write a few questions down and send them in, but was a very busy media line today, so weren't able to get to all of those questions, but we will be working on trying to finalize some interviews with the crew, as well as being there for the launch, so we will try to still get some answers to those. We just pinned in the chat, you can join us in less than 2 hours as we count down to the launch of Rocket Lab's first electron flight of 2022, and we hope you will join us for that. But that is going to do it for today's live news coverage of the first mission briefing of Axiom Space's first private mission to the International Space Station. For now, this is Zach from the Launchpad signing off. We'll see you next time.